Day 5 of the Diddy trial closed a major chapter, Cassie's testimony. After days of emotionally intense questioning, Cassie finally stepped off the witness stand, visibly relieved and heavily pregnant. The defense aimed to dismantle her credibility with a barrage of confusing and rapid-fire texts, hoping to portray her as inconsistent and emotionally erratic. But the tactic may have backfired. Even the Washington Post described the day's testimony as lacking coherence. Not because of Cassie, but due to the defense's chaotic strategy. Their plan seemed to rely on bombarding the jury with out-of-context texts to create doubt. Yet the messages were so fragmented and poorly presented that they ended up creating more sympathy for Cassie than suspicion. Observers noted she appeared steady and poised, even as the defense tried to rattle her. And in a powerful symbolic moment, Cassie exited the courtroom for good. 8 months pregnant, visibly emotional, but unshaken. She had just endured days of public scrutiny, graphic questioning, and the burden of reliving deeply traumatic events. And she didn't flinch. If the defense's goal was to break her or sow confusion, the result may have been the opposite. Cassie emerged as more human, more believable, and perhaps even more powerful than before. The jury saw a woman not just testifying, but surviving, and that could shift the entire emotional tone of this trial. The cornerstone of Diddy's legal team's defense strategy became crystal clear on day 5. Convince the jury that Cassie wasn't a victim. She was a willing participant. They dug into old text messages, audio clips, and past behaviors, all with the goal of showing that she wanted to engage in the infamous freak-offs. They pointed to messages where Cassie asked questions about other women involved or appeared to initiate sexual encounters. The implication? This wasn't coercion, it was consent. But the prosecution saw it coming. In their opening statement, they laid the groundwork. Yes, you'll see messages that seem compliant, even affectionate, but Cassie's cooperation came under threat of consequences. It was survival, not enthusiasm. She smiled through fear. She agreed to things to protect her safety, her career, and her family. Legal experts on the panel, including attorney Christopher Melcher, pointed out that this type of manipulation is common in abusive relationships, especially those with extreme power imbalances. Just because someone appears to go along with something doesn't mean it was truly voluntary. It's not about whether Cassie ever said yes, it's about whether she ever felt safe saying no. And even worse for the defense, Cassie had already acknowledged this exact tactic on the stand. She testified that she often put on a good face to avoid Diddy's wrath, because behind closed doors, compliance was her only shield from violence and career sabotage. So while the defense hoped to redefine Cassie as complicit, they may have just deepened the image of a woman trapped in a high-stakes psychological prison, one where love, loyalty, and fear blurred together until she couldn't tell them apart. At the core of Cassie's testimony and the prosecution's case is a chilling imbalance of power. Diddy wasn't just her boyfriend. He was her boss, her mentor, her label executive, and the man controlling every aspect of her career and personal life. She signed with his label at just 21 years old, a wide-eyed newcomer stepping into a world ruled by one of the most powerful figures in the music industry. From the start, the dynamic was lopsided, and the prosecution is betting everything on proving that imbalance wasn't just toxic, but criminal. Attorney Ron Zambrano emphasized that Cassie's role in Diddy's life wasn't limited to romance. She was technically his employee. Her albums, her career trajectory, even her ability to release music all fell under his control. Yet according to testimony, none of her 10 recorded albums were ever released. He shelved her career while allegedly using her for personal gratification. The prosecution is highlighting that this wasn't just abuse, it was exploitation, weaponized through both emotional and financial dependency. What's even more damning is how Cassie's texts and behavior used by the defense to paint her as compliant can now be reframed as survival tactics. If she upset him, she didn't just risk personal punishment. She risked her livelihood, her identity, and the only path to success she had been given. The prosecution began leaning into this narrative more aggressively during redirect, suggesting that Cassie's every move was shaped by fear of losing everything. Saying yes wasn't a choice, it was the only option. In their eyes, this wasn't just a romantic relationship gone wrong. It was a system of control designed to keep Cassie and possibly others in line. And if the jury buys into that framing, it's no longer a matter of, was she willing? It becomes, did she ever have a real choice? Before the courtroom even got into testimony on day 5, chaos was already brewing. this time outside the courtroom. Tensions rose over growing concerns that the defense was deliberately dragging out Cassie's cross-examination in an attempt to trigger a mistrial. The prosecution accused Diddy's team of intentionally prolonging questioning to exhaust the court, the witness, and maybe even the judge. It raised a critical question. Were they playing dirty to reset the board? Even as the judge pushed forward and insisted things wrap up on schedule, the defense made a formal objection, on record, that they were being rushed, especially given Cassie's importance as a witness. But legal analysts called their bluff. They had ample time to cross-examine her. In fact, as attorney Chris Melcher pointed out, if you need days to make your point, you probably don't have one. But mistrial concerns weren't the only thing swirling. Fake tweets and misinformation began flooding social media, threatening to muddy public perception of what was really happening in court. A major journalist covering the trial, Inner City Press, who's been live tweeting from inside the room, warned viewers about impersonators using doctored screenshots to spread lies. Some fake tweets were even crafted to look like official court reporting, making it hard for casual observers to tell what was real. This raised an even bigger red flag. Could this kind of misinformation sway public opinion? Or worse, the jury? While jurors are supposed to avoid outside information, we all know how porous the internet can be. And with a case this high profile, it's clear some are trying to manipulate the narrative from the outside in. So now the court faces two battles, one inside the courtroom, and one playing out in real time across social media feeds. One moment stood out on day 5, and it wasn't flashy or explosive. It was quiet, emotional, devastating. Cassie was asked to read a text she sent to Diddy after the now infamous 2016 hotel assault caught on surveillance video. In it, she wrote, "You always want to show me that you have the power and you knock me around. I'm not a rag doll. I'm someone's child." The courtroom fell still. No theatrics, just Cassie's voice delivering a direct, gut-wrenching message of pain and fear. And in that one text, the prosecution may have gained one of its most potent weapons. Legal experts on the panel immediately pointed out the subtext. Cassie wasn't threatening or retaliating, she was pleading. She wasn't just describing abuse, she was naming it. Her words gave the jury a first-hand window into the psychological torment of a woman trapped in an abusive dynamic, one where Diddy allegedly used power, emotional, physical, and professional, to dominate her life. And here's where it gets even more strategic. This message directly contradicts the defense's entire argument that Cassie was a willing participant. The text proves she didn't want this. She didn't accept it. She wasn't enjoying it. She was suffering through it. Attorney Ron Zambrano noted that if he were the prosecutor, he'd project that message on a screen during closing arguments and let it sit in silence for the jury to absorb. Because no matter how many warm texts or old photos the defense pulls out to muddy the waters, this message cuts straight through. It's not Cassie's words from a lawyer. It's not a scripted moment on the stand. It's a raw, real-time cry for help. And it could be the message that sticks with jurors long after the trial ends. In a bold move, the defense played an audio clip from 2014 featuring Cassie threatening a man's life. Her words were jarring. To the average listener, that kind of statement sounds incriminating, violent, aggressive, even psychotic. And that's exactly what the defense hoped the jury would think. The goal was simple: cast doubt on Cassie's credibility by portraying her as unstable, vengeful, and capable of serious threats. But once again, context flipped the entire narrative. Cassie testified that Diddy instructed her to make that threat. The man she was speaking to allegedly had an explicit video of her, and Diddy, according to Cassie, demanded she deliver that message to scare the man into submission. Her tone wasn't random rage, it was performance under pressure. Legal analyst Ron Zambrano broke it down. This isn't just a woman lashing out, it's a woman acting as an enforcer, following orders within what the prosecution is calling a criminal enterprise. If Cassie was coerced into threatening others on Diddy's behalf, it supports the idea that she wasn't just abused, she was used. There's another layer too. The defense's entire strategy hinges on proving Cassie had control and agency in the relationship. But if she was making threats under Diddy's instruction, that argument starts to collapse. Instead of independence, we see obedience. Instead of aggression, we see manipulation. So while the defense introduced the audio to suggest Cassie was complicit, it may have done the opposite, highlighting just how deeply under Diddy's control she really was. And with each piece of evidence that shows Cassie enforcing Diddy's rules, the prosecution builds its case that this was never just a toxic relationship. It was a system of control, coercion, and fear, one that Cassie didn't run, but tried to survive. As day 5 continued, the courtroom took a darker, more personal turn. The defense shifted gears, diving into Cassie's mental health history, her trauma therapy, and her time in rehab. They asked probing questions about her 2023 inpatient stay, a 45-day trauma recovery program where she underwent EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, and neurofeedback therapy, treatments specifically used for survivors of severe psychological abuse. Then, in a move that many saw as cruel and calculated, the defense asked Cassie if she had ever received treatment for sex and love addiction. She flatly denied it. Legal experts and commentators immediately flagged the tactic for what it was: victim blaming. Instead of focusing on Diddy's behavior, the defense tried to paint Cassie as unstable or even pathological, implying that her trauma was somehow her fault. But what they may not have expected was how human it made her look. As Kim from the panel noted, trauma therapy forces survivors to unlock the very memories their minds buried to survive. It's excruciating, and for Cassie, it was a lifeline, proof that she wasn't running from the truth. She was running toward healing. To the jury, this wasn't a woman spiraling, it was a woman doing the hard work to reclaim her life. She even admitted she had once told her husband, Alex Fine, that he would be better off raising their children without her. A heartbreaking reflection of how deeply the abuse had scarred her. So while the defense may have thought this line of questioning would undermine Cassie's credibility, it may have had the opposite effect, showing the jury just how broken she had been, and how hard she fought to put the pieces back together. In one of the most bizarre, and frankly embarrassing moments of day 5, the defense tried to pull off a dramatic gotcha using one of Cassie's old text exchanges with Diddy. They highlighted a message where Cassie appeared to agree to a final freak-off, quoting her as saying, "I don't want to freak off for the last time. I want it to be the first time for the rest of our lives." To the defense, this was gold, a smoking gun. Proof, they believed, that Cassie not only participated willingly in these acts, but romanticized them. The implication? She was into it, and their narrative of a mutually consensual relationship was intact. But then, the prosecution stood up for redirect. Without raising their voice or objecting, they simply asked Cassie to read the rest of the message. And that's when everything fell apart. Cassie continued reading. "I want to see you, but I'm emotional right now, and I don't want to do one last time. I'd rather not do it at all." Just like that, the entire narrative collapsed. The first time for the rest of our lives line was not some fantasy or sexual invitation. It was an emotional plea wrapped in confusion, avoidance, and pain. The message wasn't seductive. It was resigned. Chris Melcher, one of the attorneys on the panel, summed it up best. "That was just dumb." In trying to twist Cassie's words into a trap, the defense handed the prosecution a perfect opportunity to show exactly how manipulative and misleading their strategy was. Worse, it reinforced a key point. Cassie often tried to say no, but Diddy wouldn't let her. He'd flip the script, guilt-trip her, make her feel like she was the one being difficult. That kind of psychological manipulation is central to the prosecution's case, and the defense just handed them a textbook example of it. Just when the courtroom couldn't get any stranger, it did. Special Agent Yasmin Binda of the Department of Homeland Security took the stand and described the circumstances of Diddy's arrest at the Park Hyatt Hotel. What agents found inside his room raised eyebrows and questions. Among the items seized, prescription medication under the alias Frank Black, pink powder in unmarked bags that later tested positive for controlled substances, and once again, baby oil. Lots of it. Yes, baby oil has become a bizarre but reoccurring theme in this case, allegedly used during freak-offs. It was discovered after the federal raid, when Diddy already knew he was under investigation and was supposedly laying low. And yet, there it was again, almost like a signature left behind. But the real comedy came when Diddy's own lawyer, infamously nicknamed the Costco lawyer, tried to justify the stockpile. His explanation? Diddy bought it in bulk from Costco. That might have worked, except for one problem. Costco doesn't sell baby oil. The moment was so ridiculous, it instantly went viral. Legal analysts were stunned that a seasoned defense attorney would offer a blatantly false excuse that was instantly disprovable. The prosecution didn't even need to rebut. It was a self-own, and a bad one. But beyond the awkwardness, there's a deeper takeaway. As attorney Ron Zambrano pointed out, this showed something psychologically significant. Even when the walls were closing in, Diddy couldn't stop. He kept the substances. He kept the paraphernalia. He was either delusional or so addicted to control and gratification that no amount of legal pressure could shake him out of it. And to the jury, that may not scream innocent man. It may scream obsession, compulsion, guilt. As explosive as Cassie's testimony was, painting a picture of abuse, control, and psychological torment, there's still one massive question looming over this trial. Does any of it actually prove racketeering? That's the million-dollar question, and the lawyers on the Popcorn Planet panel didn't hold back. Attorney Chris Melcher broke it down bluntly. RICO charges aren't about proving someone is a monster. They're about proving someone ran an organized criminal enterprise. Think the mob, drug cartels, crime rings, groups with structure, roles, and profit motives. So far, Cassie's testimony, while emotionally powerful, has focused mostly on personal abuse. And that, Melcher argues, may not be enough to satisfy the complex requirements of a RICO conviction. The prosecution has to prove that Diddy didn't just abuse Cassie, but that he used his resources, employees, and cross-state connections to run an illegal operation. And crucially, he's the only person named in the indictment. Attorney Ron Zambrano echoed the same concern. He expected Cassie to deliver more about the alleged inner workings of a larger system. Names, logistics, roles. Instead, her testimony often sounded like the story of a battered partner, not a whistleblower exposing a vast criminal network. But here's the twist. There were glimpses, mentions of a travel agent booking women across state lines, employees enforcing freak-off rules, and even sawed-off firearms with serial numbers removed. These details hint at a deeper, possibly coordinated operation, but they were scattered and underdeveloped. As Kim from the panel noted, Cassie may not be the one to prove the enterprise. She might be the one to humanize it, setting the emotional stage for others to fill in the structure. And with weeks of testimony still to come, including possible appearances from key figures like Aubrey O'Day, the prosecution still has time to connect those missing dots. So, after 5 brutal days in court, the world has seen Cassie stand tall, speak her truth, and walk away. Pregnant, emotional, but undeniably powerful. She didn't just survive Diddy. She stared him down in a courtroom and made the world listen. But the big question remains, will her story be enough to take down a man as powerful as Sean Combs? Or will the technicalities of the law shield him once again? There's still a long way to go, and we'll be right here breaking it all down for you. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for daily trial coverage, and drop a comment below. Do you think the prosecution is winning so far, or is Diddy's team playing the long game? We read every comment and want to hear what you think. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you back here Monday with the next explosive chapter.